The boardroom fell silent. $70 million hung in the balance as the interpreter collapsed mid-sentence, clutching her chest. The UAE delegates rose from their seats, briefcases already closing. Sophia Morrison stood frozen in her burgundy Valentino dress, watching her company's future crumble in real time. Then a small voice cut through the chaos. "Excuse me. I can translate." Every head turned toward the 8-year-old girl standing beside a man in a janitor's uniform, her father's mop still leaning against the wall behind them. David Williams had learned to survive in the spaces nobody noticed. At 35, he wore invisibility like a second uniform, moving through the gleaming halls of Market Vision Corporation long after the executives had gone home. His hands knew every surface of the 40-story tower, every scuff mark that needed buffing, every coffee stain that required attention before dawn. The small apartment in Queens held everything that mattered. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen where Emma did her homework at a table David had rescued from a dumpster and refinished himself. The walls were covered with handmade flashcards in 7 different languages, each one written in Emma's careful 8-year-old script. She had started with Spanish, picking it up from their neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez, who babysat her after school. Then came French from the library's language learning section, Arabic from YouTube videos she watched on David's old phone, Mandarin from the restaurant owner downstairs, who let her practice during their dinner breaks. Portuguese, German, Italian followed naturally. As if her brain was designed to collect languages the way other children collected dolls or trading cards. David never understood where the gift came from. His late wife Sarah had been a nurse, practical and warm, who spoke only English with a slight Southern accent from her Georgia childhood. He himself had barely graduated high school before taking whatever jobs would pay the bills. But Emma was different. Special. Every night after his shift, he would find her curled up with a book in some new language, her lips moving silently as she decoded the strange letters and sounds. She never asked for much, never complained about the cramped apartment, or the fact that other kids had parents who came to school events during daytime hours. She just learned, absorbed, grew. "Papa," she would say, testing out a new phrase in Arabic or Mandarin. "Did you know that in German, they have one word for the feeling of being alone in the woods?" Waldensamkeit. David would smile, ruffling her dark hair, marveling at this creature he had somehow helped create. Sarah would have been so proud. 40 floors above David's nighttime world, Sophia Morrison lived in a different kind of solitude. The corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan like a throne room, cold and impenetrable. She had inherited Market Vision Corporation from her father at 28, becoming one of the youngest female CEOs in the city. The business magazines called her a visionary. The tabloids called her an ice queen. Neither knew about the nights she stood at those windows, bourbon in hand, wondering if the empire was worth the emptiness. Her marriage had ended 2 years ago, when she discovered her husband's affair with her former assistant. Worse than the betrayal was the reason he gave during their last argument. "You were never really there, Sophia. Just your money was." She had built walls after that, thick ones. Every smile in the boardroom became suspect, every compliment a potential manipulation. She worked 18-hour days, making Market Vision the most profitable it had ever been, proving that she needed no one. Trust was for people who could afford to be broken. Her penthouse in Tribeca matched her office. Beautiful, expensive, empty. She ate takeout alone most nights, scrolling through acquisition reports and market analyses, until exhaustion finally pulled her under. Sometimes, she would see families in the park below, children laughing, parents holding hands, and feel something twist inside her chest before she turned away. 2 worlds, running on parallel tracks through the same building. The janitor, who arrived at midnight when the offices emptied. The CEO, who left at midnight, when exhaustion finally won. They existed in the same space but different dimensions, separated by 40 floors and an infinite gulf of circumstance. Until the day, the air conditioning system on the 40th floor decided to fail at the worst possible moment. David got the call at 6 in the morning. Emergency maintenance needed before the executive meeting at 9. Some pipe had burst overnight, flooding the hallway outside the main conference room. He dressed quietly, careful not to wake Emma, then hesitated at her bedroom door. Mrs. Rodriguez was visiting her daughter in New Jersey. The backup sitter had canceled last minute. Emma was still asleep, curled around her worn stuffed rabbit, a French language workbook open on her nightstand. He made a decision that would change everything. "Em, wake up, sweetheart. You need to come with Papa to work today." She blinked awake, confused, but trusting. "To the big building? Just for a few hours. You can bring your books. You'll be so quiet they won't even know you're there." By 7:30, David was on his knees in the 40th floor hallway, soaking up water while Emma sat in a small alcove near the conference room, a stack of library books beside her. She had chosen well. All topics that required no noise. Marine biology in English. A poetry collection in French. A children's history of ancient China in Mandarin. The executives began arriving at 8:30. David kept his head down, working quickly, trying to finish before the meeting started. Emma remained perfectly still in her corner, practically invisible. Then Sophia Morrison stepped off the elevator. She moved like someone who owned not just the building, but the very air inside it. The sharp click of her heels announced her presence before she came into view. David recognized that sound, had heard it countless times, echoing through empty corridors late at night. But he had never been in the same space with her during daylight hours. She was younger than he had imagined, beautiful in a way that seemed almost weaponized. The kind of beauty that kept people at a distance rather than drawing them close. Her gray suit was immaculate, her dark hair pulled back so tightly it made her cheekbones even sharper. Her eyes swept the hallway, cataloging everything, and stopped cold when they landed on Emma. "What is a child doing here?" Her voice could have cut glass. David straightened immediately, his wet hands dripping onto the carpet. "Ma'am, I apologize. My sitter canceled, and I had to respond to the emergency call. She's just reading quietly. She won't disturb anyone." Sophia's jaw tightened. "This is a restricted floor. We have a critical meeting in 30 minutes. I don't allow children in executive spaces." "I understand. I'll have her wait downstairs." "Miss Morrison?" Emma's voice was small but clear. She had stood up from her corner, closing her French poetry book carefully. "I'm sorry for causing trouble. I'll go right now." Something flickered across Sophia's face. Surprise, maybe, at the politeness, at the intelligence in those young eyes. "You speak French?" Sophia asked, noticing the book's cover. "Yes, ma'am. And Spanish, Arabic, Mandarin, Portuguese, German, and Italian." Emma said it matter-of-factly, without pride or boastfulness, the way someone might mention they could ride a bike. Sophia stared. "You're 8 years old." 8 and 4 months, Emma confirmed. Before Sophia could respond, Emma's old phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her expression shifted to concern. "Excuse me one moment," she answered in rapid Spanish, her voice taking on a gentle, reassuring tone as she spoke with Mrs. Rodriguez, who was panicking about a doctor's appointment she had forgotten how to describe to the clinic receptionist. David watched Sophia watch his daughter. The CEO's expression had transformed from cold irritation to something else entirely. Confusion, maybe, or recognition of something she had thought no longer existed in her world. Emma finished the call and looked up apologetically. "I'm sorry. My neighbor needed help with a medical appointment. I'll go now." She gathered her books with careful dignity, took her father's hand, and walked toward the elevator without another word. Sophia stood in the hallway for a long moment after they left, staring at the empty space where the child had been. Something about the interaction had unsettled her in a way she couldn't name. The girl's courtesy. The father's quiet dignity. The absence of any attempt to impress or manipulate. It felt disturbingly like encountering something genuine in a world she had decided was entirely fake. The conference room filled quickly. Sophia took her position at the head of the table, her game face firmly back in place. The UAE delegates arrived exactly on time, 5 serious men in expensive suits representing a petroleum conglomerate looking to expand into American markets. $70 million over 3 years, the deal that would cement Market Vision's dominance in energy sector consulting. The interpreter, a woman in her 50s whom they had used for years, sat beside Sophia, looking slightly pale. "Are you all right, Mrs. Chen?" Sophia asked quietly. "Just a bit dizzy." "I'll be fine." The meeting began smoothly. Sophia presented the proposal with her usual precision, each slide revealing months of research and strategy. Mrs. Chen translated flawlessly, her voice steady and professional. 20 minutes in, Mrs. Chen paused mid-sentence. Her hand went to her chest. The color drained from her face. Excuse me, She collapsed forward onto the table. Chaos erupted. Someone called 911. Two executives rushed to help Mrs. Chen into a chair. Loosening her collar, the UAE delegates stood, speaking rapidly in Arabic to each other, their body language making their intention clear. Without an interpreter, there could be no meeting. Without a meeting, there would be no deal. Sophia felt the moment slipping away like sand through her fingers. 3 years of work, $70 million. Her father's legacy. Everything. She had sacrificed her personal life to build. "I apologize," the lead delegate said in heavily accented English. "We must reschedule. Perhaps next month when you have proper translation services." "Excuse me." The small voice came from the doorway. Emma stood there, still holding her father's hand, her library books tucked under one arm. David looked mortified, trying to pull her back. But she had already stepped forward. "I can translate," Emma said, this time in perfect Arabic. The room fell into stunned silence. The UAE delegates turned as one, their expressions shifting from irritation to shock to something like wonder. The lead delegate responded in rapid Arabic, clearly testing her. Emma answered without hesitation, her accent flawless, her tone respectful in exactly the way Arabic culture demanded. She explained that she had been studying the language for 2 years, that she understood they were discussing energy sector partnerships, and that she would be honored to assist if they found her adequate. The delegate's face broke into a smile. He said something that made the other men chuckle. "He says I speak Arabic better than his nephew who was born in Abu Dhabi," Emma translated, allowing herself a small smile. Sophia found her voice. "Emma, you don't have to. I want to help," Emma said simply. "If you'll trust me." What choice did they have? Sophia gestured to the empty chair beside her. David started to object, but Emma had already climbed into the seat, setting her books aside with careful ceremony. The meeting resumed, and Emma was magnificent. She didn't just translate words. She translated meaning, culture, intention. When Sophia made a reference to American business practices, Emma explained the cultural context to the delegates. When they expressed concerns about contract flexibility, she helped Sophia understand the deeper implications behind their carefully worded objections. She was a bridge, effortlessly spanning 2 worlds with the natural grace of someone who had never learned to see languages as barriers. The delegates relaxed. Questions flowed more freely. Sophia found herself explaining things more clearly, understanding their responses more deeply, all because of the 8-year-old girl who somehow made a corporate negotiation feel like a conversation between friends. An hour later, the contract was signed. The delegate stood, bowing to Emma with genuine respect before shaking Sophia's hand. The lead man said something in Arabic that made Emma blush. After they left, Sophia asked, "What did he say?" He said. Emma hesitated. "He said that Allah sometimes sends angels in unexpected forms, and that you must have a very pure heart for one to appear when you needed help most." Sophia felt something crack in her chest. She looked at this child, this brilliant, kind, impossibly mature child, and then at the father standing awkwardly by the door in his janitor's uniform, pride and anxiety warring on his face. "Thank you," Sophia said, and meant it more deeply than she had meant anything in years. "You saved us today, Emma." Emma smiled. "I'm glad I could help, Miss Morrison." As they left, Sophia remained in the empty conference room, staring at the signed contract. $70 million secured by an 8-year-old janitor's daughter. The absurdity of it should have made her laugh. Instead, she found her eyes burning with tears she couldn't quite explain. For the first time in 2 years, she had witnessed something that couldn't be bought, manipulated, or faked. Pure, innocent competence, given freely without expectation of reward. It terrified her how much she wanted to believe it was real. The news spread through Market Vision Corporation like wildfire. By noon, everyone knew. The janitor's daughter, who spoke 7 languages. The miracle in the boardroom. The $70 million deal saved by an 8-year-old girl. Most of the reactions were positive. Admiration. Amazement. Disbelief. But not all. Marcus Webb, the senior VP who had been passed over for CEO when Sophia inherited the position, leaned back in his office chair with a thin smile. Convenient timing, don't you think? The regular interpreter suddenly collapses, and a child genius happens to be in the building. His assistant, Jennifer, frowned. You think it was staged? I think David Williams has been working here for 3 years, and suddenly his daughter is best friends with the CEO? Come on. He saw an opportunity and took it. Smart, actually. You have to admire the hustle. The rumor took root. Whispered in break rooms, shared over lunch, spread through email chains disguised as innocent gossip. Not everyone believed it, but enough people heard it that it created a fog of suspicion around something that had been purely beautiful. I heard he's been grooming the kid for years, waiting for the perfect moment. Sophia's probably setting them up in some cushy position. You know how she is. Everything's transactional. Feel bad for the girl, honestly. Being used like that by her own father. David heard fragments of it. Saw the sidelong glances. Felt the shift in how other janitors and maintenance staff treated him. Some with envy, others with barely concealed disdain. He had never wanted this. Never wanted Emma's gift to become ammunition for other people's bitterness. He kept his head down and did his work. But the joy had gone out of it. Every shift felt like walking through a minefield of judgment. Emma noticed the change in him. Papa. Did I do something wrong? No, baby. Never. He pulled her close. You were perfect. Sometimes people don't know how to handle it when something good happens without an angle. In her office, Sophia heard the rumors too. And despite everything, despite the evidence of her own eyes, they wormed into her mind. Her ex-husband's voice echoed in her memory. Everyone wants something from you, Sophia. Wake up. She found herself analyzing the morning's events with cold logic. The convenient timing. The father who just happened to bring his multilingual daughter on the exact day an interpreter would fail. The child's eagerness to help. What if Marcus was right? What if she had been played? The thought made her sick. Not because she would have been fooled, she could survive that, but because it would mean the moment of genuine goodness she had witnessed was just another con, just another person using talent and circumstance to climb a ladder she had stupidly extended. She began avoiding the 40th floor hallways during David's shifts, stopped responding to the thank you note Emma had written in careful handwriting, built her walls back up, higher and stronger than before. Better to doubt everything than to be broken by believing in nothing. Someone recorded it. A junior analyst with their phone out, supposedly checking emails. But the camera was running when Emma stood up in that boardroom. 30 seconds of footage showing a small girl speaking confident Arabic to stunned businessmen. By Tuesday, the video had 10,000 views. By Wednesday, 1 million. By Friday, it had gone viral across every platform. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. The algorithms loved it. Underdog story. Child genius. Class warfare undertones. It had everything the internet craved. 8-year-old janitor's daughter saves CEO's $70 meters deal. The headlines wrote themselves. News sites picked it up. Morning shows called. A producer from Ellen's team left 3 voicemails. Someone started a crowdfunding campaign to send Emma to Harvard that raised $50,000 before David even knew it existed. Emma's face was everywhere. Strangers debated her life in comment sections. LinkedIn influencers wrote think pieces about hidden talent in unexpected places. A politician mentioned her in a speech about the American dream. And through it all, David felt his daughter slipping away from him into something he couldn't control or protect her from. He tried to shield her. Kept her home from school for a week. When reporters showed up at the building, disabled the comments on the few social media accounts they had, but the machine had started, and it didn't care about an 8-year-old's privacy or a father's fear. The breaking point came when a tabloid published a photo of their apartment building with an arrow pointing to their window, where the genius lives, inside the humble home of America's smartest kid. David stood in the lobby at midnight, still in his work uniform, staring at the article on his phone. Rage burned through him like acid. Not at the strangers. They didn't know better. But at the corporation that had let this happen. At the woman who could have stopped it with one word but had chosen silence instead. He left his mop bucket in the supply closet and walked straight to the elevator. Pressed 40. Didn't care that it was after hours, or that he had no right to be in executive spaces outside his cleaning duties. Sophia's office light was still on. It always was. He knocked once, hard, then pushed the door open without waiting for permission. She looked up from her laptop, startled. "David." "What? Do you have any idea what you've done?" His voice shook, not with fear but with barely contained fury. "My daughter can't go to school. We can't leave our apartment without strangers taking pictures. Someone showed up at her library asking for interviews. She's 8 years old, Miss Morrison. 8. Sophia stood, her face pale. "I didn't authorize any of this. You didn't stop it either." The words came out like bullets. "You have all the power in the world, and you just let them tear apart our lives for what? Good publicity for your company? A heartwarming story to boost your image? That's not fair." "Fair?" David laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about fair? You live up here in your glass tower deciding who matters and who doesn't. And when someone from the basement does something good, you turn it into a circus. You think we're just characters in your story, don't you? The poor janitor and his gifted daughter. Perfect props for whatever narrative you need." Sophia felt the words land like physical blows. "But you let it happen. That's worse." He moved toward the door, then stopped. "Emma wrote you a thank you note. Did you even read it?" She spent an hour on that letter, practicing her English cursive, because she wanted it to be perfect for you. She thought you were different. She thought you actually cared. His voice cracked on the last word. The anger drained out of him, leaving only exhaustion. "Stay away from us. Miss Morrison, we don't need your world, and you've made it clear you don't need ours." The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the silent office. Sophia stood frozen for a long moment. Then her legs gave out, and she sank into her chair. The thank you note was in her desk drawer. She had read it a dozen times, tormented by how genuine it seemed, too afraid to trust it. She pulled it out now with shaking hands, Emma's careful handwriting, decorated with small drawings of flags from different countries. "Dear Miss Morrison, thank you for letting me help. It made me happy to be useful. Papa says when you have a gift, you should share it. I hope we can be friends. Love. Emma." The first tear fell onto the paper, smudging the ink. Then another. Then Sophia Morrison, who hadn't cried since her divorce, who prided herself on being unbreakable, wept alone in her corner office, overlooking a city that suddenly seemed unbearably cold. 3 days passed. Sophia threw herself into damage control. Legal sent cease and desist letters to outlets using Emma's image. PR issued statements about respecting privacy. Security escorted reporters off the property. But the damage was done. The machine had fed, and it would take time for the attention to fade. Sophia couldn't focus. Board meetings passed in a blur. She approved budgets without reading them, signed contracts without her usual scrutiny. Her assistant asked twice if she was feeling well. On Thursday afternoon, she stayed late again, unable to face the empty penthouse. Around 8, she decided to walk through the building, something she hadn't done in months. Maybe years. She took the stairs down instead of the elevator, counting floors, listening to the echo of her heels on concrete. When she reached the main lobby, she paused near the security desk. That's when she saw them. Emma sat on a bench near the building's entrance, next to an elderly Mexican man in paint-stained work clothes. She was helping him fill out a job application, translating between English and Spanish with patient attention. The man's hands shook as he held the pen, and Emma guided him gently, her voice soft and encouraging. No cameras. No audience. No one to perform for. Just a child helping someone who needed help. Because that's what she did. That's who she was. Sophia moved behind a pillar, watching. The man finished the application and said something in Spanish that made Emma giggle. She responded, and he laughed too, a deep rumbling sound full of genuine warmth. When he stood to leave, he rested his hand on Emma's head in blessing. The gesture tender and paternal. Emma watched him go with a satisfied smile, then pulled out a book and started reading. Completely content in her solitude, Sophia felt something break open inside her chest. All the walls, all the careful defenses, all the cynicism she had built to protect herself from exactly this kind of pain. None of it mattered against the simple truth of what she was witnessing. She had been wrong. Catastrophically, shamefully wrong. This child didn't need strategizing or calculation. She just needed to be seen for what she was. A good person doing good things because that's how she moved through the world. And Sophia had failed her. Failed them both. She stood behind that pillar for another 10 minutes, trying to find the courage to approach. But what could she possibly say that would undo the damage? How could she apologize for contaminating something pure with her suspicion and fear? In the end, she retreated back to her office and spent the night drafting something that might begin to make amends. The next morning, David found an envelope slipped under his apartment door. Inside was a handwritten letter on expensive stationery and a certified check made out to the community center 3 blocks from their building. David, the letter began. No corporate formality. No legal hedging. I failed you and Emma. I let fear make me cruel and silence make me complicit. The attention your daughter received was unconscionable, and I should have used my position to stop it immediately instead of questioning motives that never existed. I can't undo the harm, but I want to do something that matters, if you'll let me. The enclosed donation will fund a free language and literacy program at your community center for the next 5 years. Emma could teach if she wants to, or just be a student, or ignore the whole thing entirely. The program exists regardless of whether you accept this apology. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see now what I should have seen then. Your daughter is extraordinary, and you are an exceptional father. And I was wrong to doubt that for even a moment. With deep regret, Sophia Morrison. David read the letter 3 times. The check was for $200,000. Emma appeared at his shoulder in her pajamas. Is that from Miss Morrison? Yeah, baby. It is. What does she say? David handed her the letter. Emma read it slowly, her lips moving slightly. When she finished, she looked up at her father with those wise, impossible eyes. She was scared, Papa. Scared people do mean things sometimes. But she's trying to be brave now, out of the mouths of babes. David felt his anger crack around the edges. Do you want to forgive her? He asked. Emma considered this seriously. I want to give her a chance to be better. Isn't that what forgiveness is? At noon on Saturday, Sophia Morrison walked into the offices of the Market Vision Corporation wearing jeans and a plain white t-shirt. No designer labels. No armor. Just herself, uncertain and hopeful and terrified. She rode the elevator down to the basement level, where maintenance and janitorial staff kept their equipment and took their breaks. The fluorescent lights flickered. The smell of industrial cleaner hung heavy in the air. This was David's world, and she was entering it without invitation or authority. He was refilling a mop bucket when she found him. He looked up, surprised, then wary. Sophia held up 2 paper bags. I brought sandwiches and an actual apology, not just a check. David dried his hands on his uniform. Studied her for a long moment. You didn't have to come down here. Yes, I did. She set the bags on a nearby table. I've spent 2 years believing everyone has an angle. That every kindness is a transaction waiting to happen. And when your daughter showed me something genuine, I couldn't accept it because it broke my entire worldview. That's not Emma's problem to solve. No. It's mine. Sophia met his eyes. I'm not here to ask you to forgive me. I'm here to tell you what I want to do, and to ask if you'll let me try to make things better." She explained her idea. Not just a language program, but a real community initiative. Teaching English to immigrants, offering translation services for people navigating healthcare and legal systems, creating a safe space for kids like Emma, who learned differently and needed challenges beyond standard curriculum. Emma could be involved as much or as little as she wants, Sophia said. This isn't about her performing or being special. It's about creating something good from something that went wrong. David listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. "If you do this," he finally said, "you have to mean it. You can't treat it like charity or a PR stunt. These are real people with real lives, not props for your redemption arc." "I know, and if Emma wants to walk away at any point, we walk away. No questions. No pressure." "Agreed." David picked up one of the sandwiches, unwrapped it slightly. "She wanted to write you back, you know. After you didn't respond to her first letter. I had to explain that sometimes important people are too busy for thank you notes from kids." The guilt cut deeper. "I read it 100 times. I just couldn't make myself believe it was real. That's sad," David said simply. "That's a sad way to live." "Yeah," Sophia agreed. "It really is." They ate their sandwiches in the basement break room, two people from different worlds trying to figure out if a bridge between them was possible. The conversation was halting at first, careful, but gradually became easier. David told her about Emma's love of marine biology and her dream of seeing the ocean. Sophia admitted she couldn't remember the last time she had been to a beach, despite living an hour from several. When David's break ended, Sophia stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. "For what it's worth, I think your wife would be proud of you. The father you are. The daughter you raised." David's expression softened. "Thank you. That means more than you know." The community center program launched 6 weeks later. They kept it deliberately low-key. No press releases or grand announcements, just flyers in the neighborhood and word of mouth through local churches and schools. Emma asked to be part of it. Not as the star or the draw, but as a helper alongside other volunteers. She taught basic Spanish to seniors, trying to communicate with their grandchildren, practiced English conversation with new immigrants, read stories in multiple languages to children in the after-school program. Sophia showed up every Tuesday and Thursday evening. Not as CEO, but as a volunteer who struggled with basic Spanish and couldn't pronounce half the Mandarin words correctly. She sat with elderly women from the Dominican Republic, helping them fill out citizenship applications. She played language games with kids who looked at her designer watch and expensive bag with curious eyes. She was terrible at it initially, too formal, too stiff, too afraid of saying the wrong thing. But Emma and David helped her learn how to laugh at her own mistakes, how to meet people where they were, how to give without needing recognition or gratitude in return. Other Market Vision employees started volunteering, then employees from other companies. The program grew organically, fed by genuine need and authentic connection rather than corporate initiative or manufactured PR. David and Sophia developed an unlikely friendship. He taught her the names of everyone who worked in the building, from security guards to mailroom staff to the woman who restocked the bathrooms. She introduced him to some of the company's education and development resources, suggesting he might want to consider management training if he was interested. "I'm good where I am," he told her. "But maybe someday, when Emma's older and doesn't need me as much." "She'll always need you," Sophia said. "Just differently." They discovered they had more in common than either expected. Both had lost spouses to illness. Both struggled with loneliness, masked by different kinds of work. Both loved old movies and bad Chinese takeout, and the quiet hours of early morning when the city finally stopped shouting. It wasn't romantic, not exactly, but it was real. A friendship built on respect and shared purpose, and the gradual dismantling of walls neither had realized were quite so high. 6 months after the boardroom incident, David knocked on the door of Sophia's Tribeca penthouse for the first time. He had brought Emma, who carried a homemade apple pie and a bouquet of bodega flowers. Sophia answered in sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, her hair down, her face bare of makeup. She looked younger, happier, real. "You came," she said, as if she hadn't quite believed they would. "You invited us," David replied. Emma insisted we couldn't show up empty-handed. They ate dinner at Sophia's dining table, which had never hosted guests before. Take out Thai food on paper plates, because Sophia admitted she didn't actually know how to cook. Emma entertained them with stories from school, her language skills peppered casually through her chatter, as she switched between English, Spanish, and Mandarin to describe different friends and teachers. After dinner, Emma taught Sophia basic Arabic phrases. "Shukran," Sophia repeated carefully. "That means, thank you?" "Perfect," Emma beamed. "Now try marhaba. That's hello." They sat on the floor of the living room, surrounded by flashcards Emma had made, laughing when Sophia butchered the pronunciation and celebrating when she got it right. David watched from the couch, his heart full of something he hadn't felt since Sarah died. Not quite hope, but its quieter cousin. Contentment, maybe. Possibility. As the evening wound down and Emma started yawning, she looked between her father and Sophia with that unnervingly perceptive gaze children sometimes have. "Papa," she said softly, "I think Mama would really like Miss Sophia." The words hung in the air. David felt his throat tighten. Sophia's eyes went bright with unshed tears. "You think so, baby?" David managed. "Yeah," Emma nodded seriously. "Mama always said the best people are the ones who keep trying to be better even when it's hard. Miss Sophia is doing that." She turned to Sophia and smiled with all the fierce, innocent love an 8-year-old could muster. "And I love you both. Is that okay?" Sophia had to set down her wine glass because her hands were shaking. "That's more than okay, Emma, that's..." She couldn't find the words. Settled for, "I love you too, sweetheart." David reached out and took Sophia's hand. Not romantically. Not yet. Just human connection, palm to palm. Warmth to warmth. An acknowledgement that sometimes the most unexpected people become family, and that love doesn't always look like what we thought it would. It looks like a janitor and a CEO, learning to see each other as equals. Like a child, teaching adults how to be kind. Like 3 lonely people, finding their way towards something whole. Emma fell asleep on Sophia's couch, curled up between them, her head on her father's shoulder and her feet tucked under Sophia's leg. The lights of Manhattan glittered beyond the windows, cold and distant. But inside, in that small circle of warmth, something entirely different burned. Trust, hard-won and carefully built. Family. Chosen, rather than given. And the understanding that sometimes grace arrives in the form of an 8-year-old girl who speaks 7 languages and believes, despite all evidence to the contrary, that people are basically good. She wasn't wrong. She had simply known what the adults had forgotten. That goodness isn't something you find in the world. It's something you build, one small act of courage and connection at a time, until the spaces between people stop feeling like walls and start feeling like bridges. David looked at Sophia over Emma's sleeping form. She looked back, and in that moment, no words were necessary. They had found what they both thought was lost. Not perfection, not the absence of pain, just the presence of something worth protecting, worth believing in, worth coming home to,